16 is an information only one, so I'm going to move that just to put it on the table. And second, Councillor Collins. I will, if there's no questions, yep. Councillor Casey, yep. Now I was going to ask for questions.
No, it's a statement. It was just to say that I thought the Urban Forest Strategy Workshop was one of the best we've ever had. And I've asked staff to apply the same principles of the interaction to the Thursday Community Development and Safety Committee Workshop, which everybody's invited to. So I look forward to seeing you all. It's on the subject of diversity, and you'll be up for a really good interactive session. How's about that?
Cool. Beautiful. There was a comment, so if there's no further questions or comments, I'm going to... It's been moved in second, so I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Now, before we move into confidential, and as I said early on in the piece, there was a request by Councillor Casey in regards to the confidential and especially C2. If you read the agenda, there's the reasons there why it's in confidential. And I obviously with Kataraina and Paul here, they are here as well as our legal. Yep. And legal if we need to invite our legal staff as well. So look, Councillor Casey, we'll just look at under extraordinary items. We'll just discuss another 17.
There's two things here. The first one is really quite important to me, and that is that what is signalled to the public that we're discussing in these three items. One is they're all land acquisition in Oraki, Mangere and Clark's Beach. My first issue is that Mangere is a huge area. It's not specific to any particular part, whereas Clark's Beach is quite definitive. So, it's not being applied evenly. That's number one. There's nothing wrong with putting the name of the area that we're looking at in the title.
The ward.
Everything else can be in confidential, but there's nothing that prohibits us talking about land acquisition in a certain space, as you've proved with C3, but not in C2, not the specific site in C2. So that's the first thing. I don't think there's any good legal reason for not putting the name on the public agenda of what it is we're discussing.
So that's with C2?
Yep.
Not C1 or 3?
No.
I reckon it's both, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I got all that here.
Through the chair, we generally put quite generic locations for all of these open space acquisitions
C3,
because on the basis that it may impact on commercial sensitivity in terms of if we have identified the particular areas that we're looking to acquire property.
With respect, this is not about acquiring property. This is just a shift of land within an existing area. There's no great commercial issues. There's some funding. There's some funding numbers in there, but we're not talking about that. I'm talking about the actual site. If it's all kept in confidential, the public should know which site it is, because you've proved it in C3. You've actually named C3, but not C2.
Just a question. Can I confirm that we are still negotiating the price in regards to C2, the acquisition of land within that area?
That is correct.
Yeah, thank you.
In fact, we're negotiating land in C1, 2 and 3.
As C1 as well?
With
and
respect,
3, with the whole 3. So, any further comments?
With respect, Mr. Chairman, it's not about the money, it's not about the funding, it's about the public's right to know what we're doing here. We've been accused many times of doing things behind closed doors. I don't mind if the doors are closed as long as they know what it is we're doing behind closed doors. This doesn't tell them anything. And I don't think it's fair. We're not even in the substance of the debate yet. This is just whether I can have the specific site written into the public agenda in the public interest.
I will have concerns in regards to putting that specific name in the public arena.
So why didn't you have concerns for C3 then?
So Clark's Beach. It's an area. It's not Clark's Beach. This is the specific area. So I'm just advising the committee that by putting the specific area, this is why they've got Old Arcade, this is why they've got Mangere, and this is why they've got Clark's Beach.
Like
It's
it's
in the
different.
area.
C1's different from
Well,
C2
look,
and C3.
this is it. I'm just going to open up for the debate, but then I'm going to.
So there'll be two parts to the debate. The first is the title, that the public has a right to
So
know
I-
what we're discussing in
I've said, and
confidential.
I won't be putting it in as a chair's discretion, but look, that's one particular issue. If there's anybody else that wants to speak in regards to this, around putting it into in public arena, Councillor Lee.
The provisions of the Act really are there to protect the public interest. If the council is undergoing negotiations, and in this case land, then normally negotiations are held in confidential session. However, there is an obligation to advise, otherwise we wouldn't even put it on the cover of the agenda, we just put a blank. And I think in terms of the balance between protecting the public interests in a commercial negotiation and protecting the public's right to know, I believe that we have grown to be somewhat conservative in the information that we put out, somewhat restricted, and I think that we need to have another think about what are we trying to achieve here in terms of the public interest. The commercial aspects, which often, but not always, are better carried out confidentially, and the obligation we have and the public's to inform the public and be transparent, and the public's right to know. Coming in regard to these sorts of transactions, we're becoming more conservative and restricted than the CCOs, and I think we need to give this a whole point in terms of transparency a bit more thought. So I share the sentiments of Councillor Casey, given the political sensitivity of this development, which is no secret.
Any further comments?
Yeah, I'd like to move that we put the name of the site into the...
As I said, I'm choosing chair's discretion, that I would not be putting the area specifically in Mangere in the public arena.
I'm moving an amendment that we put it in.
Okay, well, I'm just saying I will not be accepting it. Councillor Watson.
Seconded. Good.
Just to try and bring a pragmatic element to this debate, in any new area that's being developed, the council will be involved in some sort of acquisition. Everyone knows that. So if it's a new housing development, no matter where it is in Auckland, the council will be acquiring land for a neighbourhood park or a smaller park, pocket park, or whatever else. So that's a given. Anyone in the public knows that. In terms of to name or not to name, none of the specific details emerge from being in confidential. So there's no discussion of the exact location within the development, even though people know that there is going to be land somewhere in the development acquired, and there's certainly no mention of the dollar figures involved. So given that A, people know land is being acquired in Orerangi or anywhere else, why then is it necessary?
Well, hold on. We're debating the fact, and then you end up mentioning the area that we end up getting into the public. And I mean, what I'm saying, and I've said this right...
Can I finish?
No, you won't finish. Not when you end up mentioning the area that is in the confidential.
Oh, sorry, I thought we were in confidential.
No, we're not.
Okay,
sorry. This is why it was just so clear. This is why the negotiation in regards to this, because we are still talking and negotiating a price for it, and I want to make myself clear. I mean, not in regards to what you've just said, John. Sorry, Councillor Watson. I want to make everybody clear here that is the sole reason, one of the reasons why I would not be accepting any amendment anything at all, it is my discretion, and I'll be taking that discretion. And it won't be, because it stays in confidential. This is why, as Paul said, we have the generic area to avoid any issues around the current negotiations that we are going through. So, look, I just carry on, Councillor Watson.
My apologies for that, I didn't realise that. So I'll try to avoid mentioning any specific area. But my points still remain, and that is that in any new area, land is going to be acquired, and people know that it's going to happen in that area. So if none of the actual confidential details that go to the actual deal, whether it's the money or the location of the particular lots involved, I can't see what the public interest is being served then, because people are fully aware that there is going to be a purchase there. So what are we trying to hide from them? That the fact that actually land is going to be acquired in this new development? Well, of course it is. We know that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, why is that? How does that affect the negotiations when we know there is going to be land acquired in these places? All we don't know, and which we don't reveal, is what the costs are and how big the size is and all the rest of it. So to me, there's an illogic at work there, because people know this is going to happen. So what is compromised by identifying that specific location? Because everyone knows that's going to happen there anyway. Can anyone answer that?
The specific area, because look, Councillor Lee mentioned earlier in regards to his reasoning was how controversial, and even Councillor Casey mentioned how controversial. So for us to end up putting it there in the public arena, this is why I'm saying the fact that it is controversial from from other peoples and public as well as the people around this table. To others it's controversial, but this is why I will not be doing it. But look, I'm going to welcome any further speakers as well.
We're applying that to any area.
I'm just going to let
We're
them have their
applying
debate.
that to any area, whether it's controversial or not. So whether it's Orewa or Highbury or whatever, we're saying that we're adopting the same principle. So whether it's controversial or not doesn't come into it.
Well, I am in regards to C2.
But we seem to have a policy here as enunciated by the officers that we avoid doing that no matter where it occurs, whether it's controversial or not, and despite the fact that people know land's being acquired there anyway because it's a new development. That doesn't make sense. There's no logic to that.
Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. My view is that really this is actually, we're not trying to protect the public from anything. Or preserve the public for anything. What we're trying to do is get the best possible price. And in any negotiation, you just don't, I mean, like if you're negotiating on selling your house or buying a house, you don't go out to the general public. You try to get the best price, and that's what I want us to preserve. The ratepayers' dollars. If we can get the best possible price, we restate this stuff in the open minutes at a later date when it's done. It's not hidden from everywhere. And if you look at some of the controversial stuff, I don't want to be debating with the people from the Save Our Souls all yelling at us here about it. We're actually trying to do the best we can for an already decided subdivision, and we don't need that kind of intervention where it isn't going to make any difference. It's just going to be people clouding people's judgment around really important financial decisions we have to make and for the provision of open space. And that's, for me, what it is. It's preserving a commercial negotiation so that we can get the best possible deal, best value for money. And so that's why I'm happy to keep it the same way. But I also was just wanting clarification, Mr. Chairman, because you've been managing this really well, but I was just wondering, when you say you're not going to put an amendment up, and I agree with you, that why we would continue to debate it.
I wanted to at least give people the opportunity to put their view, because
Fine.
it's important for anybody who's chairing to at least get the views around before making the decision. This is why I said earlier, this is where I'm situated, and I haven't heard anything yet to convince me that what I'm going to do is not the right way of doing it. Councillor Casey, and then I'm going to...
I didn't realise you weren't putting an amendment. I'd like a
No,
legal
you put
ruling
the
on
amendment and I said
why
no.
the name of the site cannot be in the confidential agenda and published in the... We're not talking about the debate, we're talking about the title of the item. And I'd like a legal ruling on why the site can't be in the title with nothing, there's nothing coming out, as other people have said. I just think we will be accused of going behind closed doors again.
Well, no, I disagree, because I think what we'll end up doing is again putting the area which has been controversial for some people around this table.
Don't hide
No,
controversy,
let me finish.
Councillor Philippines.
Let me finish. Have been controversial for some people around this table, but not all. And for me, the negotiations are still continuing in regards to this land. And it's been outlined in the on 18 in regards to C2 why it's going to stay confidential. So,
Well, I mean, fundamentally, I think it boils down to the commercial sensitivity of it, whether, mentioning the site in question would prejudice the value for money outcomes you're trying to achieve, whether that would cloud the commercial negotiations. So I suppose the answer I'd give is that I think it would depend on the viewpoint of the officers leading that, so I'd probably defer to Paul and Katarina on it, whether they believe that there's a, well, it's essentially a bit of a judgment call, but I think it has to be led by the staff that are handling those negotiations. So, I mean, I don't think you can point to a situation that says you can't even mention the site.
Thank you.
But nor could you say that it should be mentioned either.
exactly.
So it's a,
Well, it is a judgment call, but with the fact that there's been controversy around this, and I mean, I do not want
very reason
anything
you
to
should
interrupt
do it.
in regards. So, but I'll let Katarina
should do it.
and Paul answer
Very
it.
reason you should.
Through the chair, I think when you look at these titles, we have thought they are consistent with each other. Do we think that we don't want to expose specific details? Yes. Could we, in future committees, at least go down to the suburb level for naming where these acquisitions are going and still maintain confidentiality? Then yes, we could. So, because we're just arguing about what the title is on the papers, could we have gone down to a suburb title? Yes, I think we could.
Can we
We've
then,
never
please?
actually thought that deeply about the titles before, and I understand from the debate today that there is a need to make sure there's also a blend of public transparency, so we can relook at how we've been titling all acquisition papers, so that the next set, well, it's about consistency. We didn't look at was Orake inconsistent with Mangere or Clark's speech. We haven't actually delved down and given it that much thought. We can re-look at whether we have been too broad in our descriptors for future papers. If you wanted to change the title to acquisition of land for open space and what, I don't know, what would the suburb be for the acquisition?
yeah.
Then we could change the title to
That's
the
fine.
suburb
Just
name.
change it. That is
Margaret is the
details you would
suburb.
like to go. Better
Look,
than
look,
that.
if Margaret is the-
I want to move along as well. Margaret is the suburb.
Yeah.
Orake is a suburb.
Exactly.
Clark's Beach is a suburb.
Yeah,
I
Mr.
just want to, because I do want to move on from here.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I think that it doesn't matter whether it's a controversial subdivision or not. You have a rule, and the rule that says because you're in the process of acquiring a piece of land, you name it by the broader suburb or area. And in this case, the three areas that we will be discussing, we have applied the rule consistently. One is in Orake, one is in Mangere, and one is at Clark's Beach. Clark's Beach is different only because it's smaller than the other two suburbs. But as long as I've been on the council, which isn't a great length of time, we have maintained that rule consistently. And there is nothing that suggests that we should break that rule simply because a particular subdivision is controversial. If you wanted to name it by subdivision, in each case you'd name it by subdivision. We've applied a different rule on this council, which is to name it by suburb, and to avoid risking the negotiations and, in particular, avoiding escalating the price on a particular piece of land. That's what the council, as I understand it, has always done, and I think we should stick to that rule.
No, I agree. So I'm going to end up,
I think I prefer
Again,
the
it's-
officers'
it's the-
views
well,
on that one.
it's my discretion as chair, so we're going to move to 18 procedural
Second issue
motion.
is the actual
Pardon?
debate itself, Mr Chairman. That was just on the naming of the
Yeah.
public item.
So we'll have the debate when it's confidential.
No, it's my view that not all of this debate should be held in public. Not every word in that report is confidential. There are parts of that report that are already in the public arena.
So my view is that we will move to the confidential and we will debate anything around there. It will be after the decision's been made into the public arena.
But this is a public debate about whether we should go into confidential.
I'm saying that we're going to move into confidential unless
I'll
somebody
move
wants...
that we don't move into
Well, okay.
confidential and have this debate in public.
Sorry?
It's a direct negative. You can vote against it,
Yeah.
but you can't.
It's a procedural,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
procedural
yeah.
item.
So I'm gonna put the and if you want to vote against it, you can vote against it. So I'm going to move the second for the procedural motion. Yep, second by Councillor Hill. So the procedural motion to exclude the public, I'm going to move that. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against?
No,
Carried.
recorded by division, that was close.
Who's the chairman?
The procedural motion. Did we go into the
We'll
public?
just make the standing orders up on the way. Why not?
Go into confidential.
Yeah, that we go into confidence. They want confidential. That we don't. That we move in to exclude the public.
What's happened? Have you declared it lost or won or what?
So we in.
There was a division called for contiguous with the vote.
Can't have a division after vote.
Can you check that?
Can technically.
So the vote was taken
Yep.
to
and I've
move into
declared-
confidential.
Yep.
That was carried.
Yeah.
It was carried on voices, you said.
Yeah, I
Yes.
can, yeah, it's carried on voices.
It's gone confidential.
And now you
Standing
moved-
orders allow at any time for a division to
That
be
was before the
called.
vote was taken.
Afterwards. No, it's at any time, especially if there's a debate about how many voices carried what or how many hands carried what. Check the standing orders.
Okay, let's go for the division.
Okay.
Council Member Brown?
Aye.
Councillor Casey?
No,
Councillor Collins?
No.
Councillor Cooper?
Aye.
Councillor Darby?
Four.
Councillor Filipina?
For,
Mayor Goff?
Aye.
Councillor Fletcher?
Yes.
Councillor Hills?
Yes.
Councillor Mike Lee?
No,
Councillor Newman?
Four.
Councillor Quacks?
it's not here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Councillor Sayers?
Four.
Councillor Simpson? Sir John gone. Councillor Wayne Walker?
No.
Councillor Watson?
No?
Member Wilcox?
Yes.
Vote is carried. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 against. So it's carried to go into confidential.
Cool, C1. Ora, okay.